Warning: this show is intended for mature audiences only. Viewers' discretion is advised. This show may contain strong language and sensitive or controversial topics. We are not attorneys and are not providing legal advice. The views and conversations are our own thoughts and feelings, and therefore, purely speculation.
The entertainment world and beyond.
Skywalker air miles, feeding on a surface, gliding on water, constricted and conflicted.
Welcome to Purely Speculation, a show that exposes the harmful effects of the criminal legal system. I'm your host, Heather Lewis, the Executive Director of the Reuniting Family Bail Fund and practitioner of participatory defense. On this show, you'll learn about the unspoken horrors of the criminal justice system and meet fierce allies and advocates. We will make the best of our traumatic experiences. We will get angry. We may even cry. We most certainly going to laugh, but one thing's for sure, we're going to keep it real. Welcome to Purely Speculation.
When they free my sins and let them loose, they was killing me, I got scars to prove, got me paralyzed, I could even barely move. Out the way I took the pain again. Yeah.
Hey, y'all. Welcome. Volume 6. Season 3, Court Watch edition. And we have a doozy for y'all tonight. I so wanted to have this episode in person because the first recount or recap of the trial with Maurice Byrd, the black man who had a stand your ground defense in a homicide case, trial last 2 weeks ago. Incident happened last year, because there were so many things going on in the courtroom that day. We all had different perspectives. We all saw and felt things differently. And so unfortunately, you all don't get to see the live reenactment of just how animated and the excitement that went into, retelling of this story. But nonetheless, we have the dynamic Taria and Scotty who were in court that week. We had a couple of interns that were watching court that week as well, but we got our experienced and court watchers here tonight to talk about this trial that we got to see. And Taria's a trooper. She sat in there and waited for the verdict to come back. So I give you that. But where do we want to start on this stand your ground, but not if you're brown case of Maurice Byrd? Who wants to start?
Yeah.
Oh, we lost her. So Scotty, I guess it's you. Oh no, there she go. Who was there for day one?
You guys.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
We were there day 1 and 2. And because we were actually there when they were picking the jury and they were in courtroom B. And then so Risa Furman, which is another interesting change, we should have pulled her up. She was the judge, and she's not normally the homicide judge. It's usually Judge Carpenter. And so that was the first thing that we noticed. And then we thought, they're going to have it in courtroom B because it's a bigger courtroom, and everything got all mixed up because the next day, or maybe after they picked the jury, they moved to courtroom F, which is her courtroom, which is probably the smallest courtroom on the second floor at the courthouse. So yeah, there was a lot of confusion, at least on day one, with where it was going to be. Because we were in F, and it was Judge O'Neill in there doing his stuff. Wasn't in B. So let's give a little background. If people that don't know the case, Maurice Byrd is a business owner, a black business owner in Horsham, Pennsylvania. He owns a barbershop out there, and he was continually harassed by a neighbor, Stephen Strassburg, who racial slurs, stalking, intimidation, harassment. The Hatboro police were called multiple times without him being cited or arrested or anything. The only thing, as far as my recollection and the research into this, that the Horsham Township Police offered in a form of help was to advise Maurice to put cameras in his establishment because they did not see this stopping. Was I the only person that heard that during the testimony? That came out in testimony. It wasn't anything that I read, afterwards. That was testimony.
That was when they when they first presented the case, when he came on to give his caption for the case of why he felt as though Mr. Byrd had grounds to be stood to protect himself. And the police really weren't doing anything, so they needed the cameras so he could prove his case that he was not the initiator and that he continued to be harassed even after the police leave. Then the guy would come back and start all over again.
Right. And it's like, when we talk about systems failing, that's a prime example of a system failing. They think they're doing, Mr. Strassburg a solid by just, I'm going to give you a warning, cut it out, don't do that, don't do that, don't do that, which essentially emboldened him because he didn't stop.
He thought he was going to continue to be the guy that they let go because this black guy, I live here, this black guy, what they do, how they act, and he came in my house and now I'm on him and nothing nobody can do. That was his set. Anytime he got drunk or felt like pound Mr. Byrd, then he did it because he knew there would be no consequences.
Right. And so, so with that also, so a little more background on the day of the incident is that Mr. Byrd called 911. He was on the phone with 911. He's got cameras inside his establishment. He asked them to have the police sent, and all the while this starts to unfold. And so, and I want to hear from Taria as well as you, Scotty, like if you have a difference of opinion. My thing is, given all of that, and I'm not sure if he had public defenders, like how could they charge first-degree murder? Because first-degree murder is not a bailable offense. So Mr. Byrd sat in custody until he went to trial. And so had he been charged with involuntary manslaughter, third degree, anything like that, he would have had an opportunity for bail. So I want to hear your opinion on why did the DA try to go for this first-degree murder when it was really not, and very easily not first degree?
Because he was a black man with a gun. And he felt as though he was the aggressor when, just plain and simple, this guy kept coming to his shop. This guy lived in the back upstairs. So anytime he felt like messing around with Mr. Byrd, he did that. And he thought that every time he came around, all he was going to do was get a slap on the hand. But this day he was intoxicated and he went over the top, calling him nigger and blackie, get out of here. We don't want you, you need to move, all kind of stuff. Right. And Mr. Byrd called 911 and told them, hey, this guy is harassing me. He's messing with my customers. You need to send a car here. And the car never came within that shot until those things unfolded.
Right, till after.
Right.
Well, my opinion on that is exactly Mr. Scott said that he it had to do with being black and brown, and also being that the man was Caucasian, and that had a lot to do with the whole outcome of the situation. I also believe that it also affected also because a lot of people don't know that Pennsylvania is a stand your ground state. And they're always quick to say here, self-defense doesn't go in Pennsylvania. But if you look at your law books and your background, we are a stand your ground state. Mm-hmm. And they tried to use that against him from the beginning. So I hope and I pray that he sues them civilly as also for his civil rights being violated through this whole due process.
Absolutely. That's why I question, like, the DA's office has a responsibility. It's not like they can just charge whatever. And here in this case, they clearly did charge whatever, even though they had all the evidence pointing to this is probably something other than first degree murder. But because first degree murder carries, you're not eligible for bail, they were going to get their pound of flesh one way or the other. And that's really what bothers me. And I hope Mr. Byrd does exactly that and files a lawsuit against the DA's office based on his civil rights, because the charge was absolutely incorrect. They know it to be incorrect. They pick and choose what cases they want to prosecute, right? Because I know, being a survivor of domestic violence, that they neglected to, prosecute my abuser and the abuser of my children because whatever. You know what I'm saying? But here they have clear evidence to the contrary that, this is first degree murder, and they charge that anyway, irregardless of the consequences to the individual.
And the problem with that was that they charged him with first degree murder before they even finished an investigation. They hadn't even finished an investigation when they charged this man with first degree murder.
Right, because they could have
saying about your case. That's two black and brown folks kill each other. That's two less we have to worry about.
Right. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
And I agree with you there. And I also say this too, that Montgomery County knows who to pit up to these certain fights. And they go into the archives and they pick the hardest and toughest DAs to get the conviction that they know that they're going to get out of that. And that's why when they lost, they were very mad when they lost. And I don't like when they lose, because everybody loses one time in life. So you have to take a loss as a loss. You're not going to always be 100% a win.
Right.
So when they lose, they're really bitter sweet when they lose, because when they lose, they don't shake hands to the next opponent. They don't congratulate the person. They walk off with an attitude and a vengeance. How can we get him back on another situation? And they go back to the board to try to get him on probably even a traffic ticket, something they want to get a conviction for.
Right.
And that's what they did.
Right. And I'm glad you brought that up, Therese. So we're gonna drag her, okay? Because you took an ugly L. It wasn't just an L, it was an ugly L. Samantha Kaufman, who has tried several cases. This is their prize ADA, who prosecutes Black men and women daily with a vicious tone. She was up there, Therese. I'm gonna let you tell. You told it best. That's how I was like, we gotta be in person. You know what I mean? Because she knew she was losing. Like, there's just so many things like that were happening that they were just banking on all of their white privilege and people being uneducated, trying to get people that maybe don't have the best memories. They just want to tell the truth, and they were being coached into saying something else, or saying it in a way that was kind of skirting the truth. You know what I mean? There were so many things, so many antics and tactics that they used, like you said, just to get that conviction, regardless if they got the right person or it's appropriate. You know what I mean? We're not saying this didn't happen, but was it a criminal intent? Absolutely not. And so for them they take everything like there's this criminal intent, and sometimes life just fucking happens. You know what I'm saying? Because these certain circumstances, situations, and things go bad, but it's not through criminal intent. And so for them, like you said, to take this so personal that it has to be this criminal intent, or, you know what I mean? They packing up their whole toy box and they're going home mad. And somebody else has to pay for that. It might not be Mr. Byrd, but the next Black man that comes along, or Black woman, oh yeah, they're going to get that.
And through Tarea's case, when she said that they picked the worst ADA so that they can get a conviction, they also picked a judge that they feel that will sweat her way. And Furman used to be the first class ADA underneath Bruce Castor. Okay,
She was
her and Kevin Steele, okay, were rowdies. Were the first two that that Bruce Castor would put out. They were his main dogs. So as a judge, that's who Kevin Steele goes to. He goes to her first because he knows that she's going to allow a lot of stuff that shouldn't be allowed in, and she's going to stop a lot of stuff that needs to be in. She's going to block it from happening.
I don't agree with that. I don't think Furman is that person because it didn't go that way.
It didn't go that way, but that's the way Kevin Steele and Bruce Castor always play it. They want the best thing on their side sitting in that seat. But like you said earlier, it didn't happen that way, okay? Because the evidence was so doggone clear and precise, it couldn't go that way.
Yeah, I thought it using that strategy, I would have seen Carpenter all day on this, or you know what I mean? Because I was curious as to why, and that may be, the behind the scenes reason. Maybe he thought she was gonna be, in alignment with what they thought. But I don't have that impression of her. So
no, I think that they could have picked, like you said, I agree with you 100% that I believe that they could have put Carpenter on, and I mean he would have been asleep the whole trial anyway. And they could have put O'Neill on, because he's been doing some homicides lately also.
Right.
And we know Thomas, Rogers has retired. We know some of the Bulldogs have retired, so definitely Carpenter would have been the one that would have probably swayed more their way than Furman, because I believe Furman kind of like stood her ground. And I think she let it be a fair trial. She also let it be a just trial. And I have to give her props because they tried to pit an expert witness on an expert of never being ever qualified for a distance examiner, and they tried to slide that through the cracks. But the public defender, chief of public defender, homicide chief, he nailed it right on the coffin. Like, I see all this back experience, but I don't see you one time as an expert in this. And Furman threw it out. And I think when I think that was the turn of event for the prosecution, when I think they knew that they were definitely not going to win this case, because once she threw that out, and that was the last witness to come on, once she threw that out, because her whole thing was this man got shot from a distance, not up close. And so once she threw that expert testimony out and said that he cannot speak upon that because he's not an expert in that field, I saw her turn red as blood. And she was worried. No, for real. They had to put away all their tools. They had this whole presentation they was about to come out with, all this breakdown, and they had to pack it up. And trust and believe me, they tried their best. And if they probably had enough time, they would have went out and got an expert to come in and tell some lies.
Right.
Because I heard that Dr. Hood, or whoever the coroner was on, I heard he was horrible. I heard he couldn't even tell the difference between white and black socks.
Oh, wow.
So that was used, that testimony was used in closing arguments. Like, he's supposed to be the medical examiner. How don't you know the difference between the victim having on black socks to white socks? That's a real big difference, And then he also did not notice that he had a hematoma on the back of his head. That means he fell straight down, like the witnesses said. So it was a lot of bullet holes in this case. They tried it. They spent a lot of money on it. They overkilled it, and they lost. Right. And they even got more highlighted, and how I want to give Risa more props is that they wanted to take him back and let him spend a couple more hours in the prison and get released from the prison. And she said to him, "You are not guilty. Thank you for serving our country. And you are dismissed. You can go home now." When I say them sheriffs were mad, the DAs was really mad. They stormed out of there. The sheriff even bumped me like an attitude. Like, man, that they couldn't lock him up one more time.
Right.
You know,
That's
so it brought tears in my eyes, though. It brought tears in my eyes because, you know, you didn't know which way it was going to go, but I had a funny feeling after day 3 that some of the jurors, Samantha was losing them. She was
right.
overkilling it, and some of the jurors wasn't, even though they wasn't black and brown like us. They had one black lady on there, but she wasn't from our world. But she was following the lead of the man next to her. And once
Right.
I seen him start making the faces that he was making, and he was giving a lot of feedback on some of the things she was trying to sell to them, I
Right.
knew right there he was going to be the one that was going to run that jury room, and that's exactly who was the foreman, and that's exactly who read them charges. Not guilty, not guilty, not guilty, not guilty.
Amen. Amen.
After
Amen.
5.5 hours of deliberation.
Right. Right. Yeah.
I think they already knew he was not guilty. I think that
Right.
they just wanted to get the free food, you know what I mean, the dinner real fast, because they did their due diligence, and then they came
Right.
back with a verdict about 2 hours later.
So back to, I'm gonna ask Mr. Scott, because you remember this quite vividly, about the witnesses. Like Taria touched on it, they threw so much out there, and they were just like hoping something or somebody was going to get something right. But the witnesses accounts, how, you know, they were recounting exactly what they saw, not how they were coached. And so, you know what I mean? You could tell it better than me because I didn't see this part. I missed these particular witnesses. But talk to me about the witnesses who they were trying to coach to remember in a certain way when it wasn't exactly accurate.
Yeah, it was the couple that lived over top of the barber shop. And they had coached them to follow the ADA's lead when she said about, you know, he came upstairs, or that he was the aggressor a lot of times in these arguments out back. And the gentleman said, no, it wasn't like that. They said, well, don't you remember you said that he came out back? He said, no, I don't remember that.
Right.
And she said, yeah, but you said so and so. He said, no, what I said was that every time he came out back, that he was harassed. The guy messed with his car. The guy wouldn't let him leave. The guy kept calling him names. He said, that's what I remember. She said, well, you didn't say that to me. He said, no, because you told me to say something else. And the wife, when they called her up, she was practically on the same line. She said, you don't remember? She said, no, I don't remember none of that, what you said, but this is what I saw. And she said, I can testify to what I saw, not what you said. And she told them what she saw. And it was nothing like what the assistant district attorney was trying to portray her to have seen. And she wasn't buying it. You know, they were a little slow, but they were smart enough to know that they were going to tell the truth. They couldn't remember. They weren't astute enough to remember what she had tried to grill into them. But they told the truth. And the truth is what they seen. And so that's all they could say. What's the truth? And that helped this case abundantly.
I love that. And the same with the tattoo shop owner. Like they didn't press him too much because he, like you said, he wasn't slow. He didn't have anything, and he told it. He didn't embellish one way or the other. He told straight facts. I have some materials in my shop. I came out to see if I could render some aid. That's what I did. You know what I mean? And so the fact that they tried to manipulate witnesses, this is what they do, you know what I mean, to bolster their case instead of just doing their job and investigating and getting the facts and getting the truth and getting justice for whoever it is. It should not matter. Black, brown, white, whatever. It should not matter. Justice is justice. And justice was served that day.
The truth is the truth.
And so let's talk. Where are we at? What time? Where's our timer? I don't see our timer. Oh, there it is. Let's talk about the closing arguments. Taria, I think that was you told it best. You gonna play Samantha Kaufman, Scotty. You gonna be the defense attorneys doing the closing arguments.
But I want to say something that pop up that Mrs. Scotty didn't elaborate real fast on with the couple. You know how it's see no evil, hear no evil. So that was husband and wife. Okay.
Right.
So I'm not gonna lie. You got one that was blind and you got one that was deaf. But but the crazy thing was they wasn't blind or deaf to what they know that they said.
Right,
But what she did that I think kind of lost the jury also is that she decided that she wanted to start intimidating them. And now you start to intimidate a witness. That's a crime. Now somebody else would have did that to somebody on the stand, they would have got charged.
Right.
So you started beating your own witnesses down. And she does that a lot in her trials, and that's not right.
Right. What'd you say, Scotty?
I said they were her own witnesses that she turned on.
Right. Because they
did not remember what she told them to say.
Right.
So she turned on them.
Ain't that wild?
Yeah.
What the things
I'm going to tell you who hurt them the most, though. The cops.
Right.
The cops. They were lying. And the sad thing about it is that they're supposed to be the men of justice. And when they sat there and they lied blatantly and said they didn't say this and they didn't say that, and they pulled in body cams, and then they hit a witness. They hit a witness that was crucial. They couldn't come back off of that. The sergeant, the first officer, and the lieutenant all lied on the stand. Now I wonder if they're gonna get perjury charges.
Right. I was gonna say, I mean, and where does that come from? Does that come from Maurice Byrd's camp to prosecute these police officers that perjured themselves? Like, how do you what is the process for that?
That has to come from the judge.
The judge. I mean, can we, as the people, request that they be charged?
Sure, you can request, but it's up to his defense attorney to put the motion forward.
But that would have to come from Mr. Byrd's camp, not just the general public.
You're right. Yeah, it had to come from his defense attorney. And see, the other thing about this is that was really baffling to me. He was on the phone for at least 10 minutes. Okay, Mr. Byrd speaking to 911.
Right.
Now, the police department is 5 minutes away from where he is in Horsham, his barbershop. It's 5 minutes away. And my thinking was that they said, oh, it's Byrd and them up there again. No big deal. Hey, we'll get there when we get there. That's my thinking. Because they would have been there. If they had got there while he was on the phone with 911, okay, this probably wouldn't have happened. But they got so many calls that they say, oh, it's them again. And then it winds up being what they call a homicide.
Right. Yeah, and that, again, the system failing. Had they just did their job, you don't get to be frustrated because you have the same people doing the same things over and over and over again. You get to do your job. So if that's citing them, yes, we want them to de-escalate and do all those things. But at some point, which obviously they missed it, you have to take the next steps. Like somebody's got to go to jail. Somebody's got to get charged. Something has to happen to change the behavior. And if this man was so emboldened, to be saying the things that he was saying, not just because he's drunk and he's harassing them, but he's like being vicious and racial slurs and all that type of stuff, messing with his business. And it's like, okay, now you're messing with my livelihood. We about to, this is about to get turned up a notch. You know what I'm saying?
And he lost his business through all this because of how they charged him. And the biggest thing about that is, I feel anyhow, about that is that you charged him without doing a thorough investigation. Most people, they let you go, okay? And then after they do their investigation, a thorough investigation, then they come and lock you up.
Right.
If that warrants to be arrested.
Right.
They don't just arrest you without doing an investigation.
We don't hold you until we do.
Without doing an investigation. And I've lost my home, I've lost my business, and I lost my doggone standing in this community that I took so long to build up that I might not never get back again.
Exactly.
You ruined my whole life because you jumped to judgment instead of doing your due diligence.
And a year has gone by, a year that I've spent incarcerated, a year away from my family. The mental anguish of being incarcerated after serving your country as a veteran, whatever ailments that he has as a result of that, like it just gets compounded, so deeply that's why we're having this conversation, is that you don't get to do that to people's lives willy-nilly. You know what I mean? These are people's lives, and they think, oh, it was just a year. Well, a year's a long time if you're the one serving it in a cage.
And
you know what I mean?
Pick up where you left off. You can't pick up where you left off. It's not that easy to start all over again after you've been in business for 15, 16 years.
Right.
Now, one thing I do know, and I haven't really spoken to Mr. Byrd. Actually, nobody has, because one of his guys that was supposed to be a character witness, I had ran into him recently at the courthouse for another situation that was here, for a situation with a police officer and a young man that passed away. And I asked him, has he talked to him? And he said, no, he hasn't talked to him since he got released. But when I was waiting, like you said, when I was waiting for the verdict to come in that night, I was able to run into some of his friends, some of the guys that he cut hair to, and his pastor. And his pastor had told me that they had started a GoFundMe to help to save his barbershop when he first got arrested. And they didn't know the outcome of the situation. So they was just going to give the money to the family if he had ended up becoming guilty, and to help him out. So I do know that they had that situation with GoFundMe for him already in the process for the last 10 months.
Oh, okay. If you have it, please share it with us and we can share it out and see and help him get back on track. I think he did an interview with the news after his release relatively quickly. Just, it's a whirlwind, surreal, just trying to, process it all. We're probably 2 weeks out, 3 weeks out, was the beginning of this month, from him being free. And so, but back to Samantha Kaufman, I'm not done dragging her. Taria, you had some other things to say about you. We talked about the cops lying, but her closing remarks. She wore the famous red dress.
Oh yeah. She always wears that when it's closing argument. I said, oh, the lady in the red dress, she's going she's on fire.
Right.
And she started with the screaming and the hollering. And then she tried to clean it up at the end and say she wasn't dumbing down the word nigga, but she was kind of using it vaguely. And I think that was kind of a turn off for people too, because she was kind of saying it's just a word, it's just a word. But she kind of contradicted the situation because they already knew she was going to use that as just a word. So what Mr. Schultz did is, when he did his closing, he said how nigga was used back in the terms for slavery days. And that word took a long time for people to come about to get that word, not racism. Yes. And she kept on saying pretty much like, oh, it's just a word. And you can't really be upset about a word, because, words don't kill. He intentionally wanted to kill this man. That word didn't matter. But to her, it didn't matter. But in our world, it matters a lot.
Absolutely. And that's the thing that they neglect to recognize, is cultural differences. Like, you can't, as a white man, come into a black community using that word and think you're going to walk around and not get fucked up. somebody gonna do it, regardless if you said it to them or not. It's gonna get people are gonna catch their attention. You know what I'm saying? You walking through a black neighborhood, just spewing that kind of language. You taking your life in your hands. Like, you really wanna? Who does that? Like, why would you do that? You know what I mean? That's intentional. It's you know what I mean? It's race baiting. It's hate crimes and all that stuff. Like, that's if anybody use any other racially slurred word and go to their community and say that. You know what I mean? So it's like, no, you don't get to do that to black and brown people. You don't get to belittle and lessen, you know what I mean, our pain and our trauma, or tell us what words mean to us, what words hurt, what words trigger our trauma. You don't get to do that. You're a white woman. You have no idea.
And not
for
just
her-
that, it also another phrase that really upset a black man also is the guy kept on calling him a drug dealer.
Right.
Everybody that's black don't sell drugs. Just because I
Right.
got a little bit of, because that's what he kept on saying to him too. Like, how many drugs did you sell to get here?
Right.
And come on, why does he got to sell drugs to come to a predominantly white neighborhood to be able to get a business?
Right.
And that's really sad.
Absolutely. And like I keep saying, you don't get to do that. Like, that's not an adult. That's not how adults should behave. That's not how human beings treat each other. That's not how professionals, you know what I mean? If she's a professional, like, this is how you do. This is how you talk. This is how you present yourself. Like, this is your day job. How are you in your personal life? You walk around with them same feelings, those same attitudes toward people of color or anybody that is, a defendant.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You just rip them to shreds and just talk all kinds of ways. You don't care about nobody in that. Clearly, for her own side or the defense side, she's proven that all you want is the conviction. All you want to do is tell your story so convincingly, whether true or not, that you win over the jury and they vote your way.
And she also dumbed it down too, to try to make him, like, one thing that I learned about her too in some trials, she's always quick to say somebody should have stayed inside, like they're a kid. Like, he don't got to stay inside his building, like, oh, he should have stayed inside his building and waited for the cops to come. That man could have came through the building. The man was already taunting him in the front of his building. He didn't come outside. He just went to the back and went to the side. The guy followed him around there. Like, everything was already calculated to know that this man was a bully. You know what I mean? You cannot bully people. That's a crime. This man stalked this man. This man harassed this man. I could name 6 crimes that they kept on saying that he didn't do nothing to be charged for. Come on.
Right.
He went in this man's establishment. He did terroristic threats. He told him that he don't belong here. That if he came in his house again, he accidentally went into his house. Okay. But the landlord told him to go and say something to him. So the landlord kind of passed the buck. But why wasn't the landlord there to prove that she didn't tell this man to go into this man's house? He apologized to him, but after a while, after he didn't accept his apology, he told him to suck his thing. So at the end of the day, she used that as a cry back to show the jury that, oh, he used the word too. That's not as bad as the word nigga.
No. Every man got one of them.
And the other side of that is that after he seen that Mr. Byrd wasn't going for a lot of his stuff, then what he started doing was harassing Mr. Byrd's customers. And a couple of the women, one especially, who was going to open a hairdresser in the back of his shop, he started intimidating her, whereas she said no, told Mr. Byrd that she couldn't do it because she couldn't deal with this guy and this nonsense. And when guys came up to go in the barber shop, he said, you got drugs on you? Or you going in there to buy drugs? So, he just started weighing off of his doggone clientele. So it got to be not only him, but other people that were his customers.
Right.
Yeah. Agree. And they witnessed it firsthand, and they were able, and at first I was kind of leery with the character witnesses that the lawyer put up, because he kind of like X'd a couple people out. but like the pastor and things like that. But I saw the strategy after they got on. He used the more powerful people to kind of align his story. And the biggest factor for Mr. Byrd on that character witness was his partner in Iraq. And when he told the story about them being in Iraq, and he told a story about how Mr. Byrd saved his life and how they seen death and how they suffer PTSD and how they seen people killed in front of them and how they got hurt in the war, I saw the jury's whole demeanor change.
Right.
To like, this man don't belong here.
Exactly. Anything else you guys remember from the trial? Go ahead.
Now, I remember how animated the ADA tried to be. And every time she tried one of those tricks, one of Byrd's lawyers always had a comeback for her and shut her down. So finally she called a sidebar. They had at least 5 or 6 sidebars during this whole doggone trial. But the last time when she messed with her own 2 witnesses, the husband and wife, and the defense attorney shut her down, she's right in the middle of their cross-examination. She called a sidebar and asked them about what were they trying to do by blocking her when she's stopping them from doing the cross-examination because she kept being animated at the table and they shut her down. And that's when she really got pissed. And like Taria said, that's when the jury started saying that something was afoul with this.
Right.
Well,
show.
Well, the highlight to where I think the prosecution lost, not even just from trying to bring the expert on, the fake expert, but the highlight for their star witness was the brother. He killed the Commonwealth. He killed them. And the sad thing is that they still, like, when they take your phones into evidence, they still keep the phones on.
Right.
And apparently, I guess she didn't know that the other side was going to bring up the flaws of the phone tactic. So they were bringing up what was in the phone, and they were pretty much trying to use him to get the first degree in. And they did that by saying that the brother told him that if anything ever happened to him, had his sister go to the file cabinet and take this straight to the police because the black man killed them.
Right.
That was the worst comeback that I ever seen in life. I mean,
and tell us why, because not everybody was there. We were there. Tell us why.
So they even went to the stream to hiring a handwriting expert to prove that this letter saying "suck my D" was from Mr. Byrd.
Right.
And then they even showed where he took something to hide the camera. Like he put something over the camera. Like basically like, now you want to see me? Here, see me like this.
Right.
But what really killed the brother's testimony was when he decided that they were texting, I guess, in a group text a day or 2 after he passed away. And he said to his family, "Oh, well, I'm glad that the nigga got killed now. I mean, the nigga killed them now."
Right.
And when he said that he tried to say he never used the word nigga.
Right.
And then when the cross-examination came, they read that back to him, what he said. And he said, "Oh, I apologize." And he said, "It's a little too late for that." You know what I mean? You said what you said.
And he said he tried to read it. He was reading it. He didn't say it. Yeah.
Yes. And then she turned around and did a rebuttal. And she said, "Well, wasn't you only saying that because you was really angry this man just killed your brother?" He said, "Oh, yeah, probably that, or I was drunk." It was done. When I say that she wanted to go and top of her, wanted to go on, I think she wanted to go slap him off that stand. It was not the right comeback.
Right. Well, hey, what Scotty say? These people weren't the smartest, and all they could remember was the truth. They couldn't lie if you paid them, which they were probably trying to do. They could not remember a lie to save their lives, so all they could do was respond with the truth. And I think the universe or whoever, whatever it is that allowed that phenomenon to happen on that day. I mean, I know Mr. Byrd is truly grateful, and we are as a community, because we take that as a win for all of us. We are all happy that was the verdict. I always say that there's never winners in a homicide trial, because both sides lost something that they could never get back. And so us having this conversation, I say it all the time, does not take away from the loss of life. You know what I mean? We're highlighting the things that could have happened to prevent the loss of life. But also too, I mean, I'm not a fan of violence. I don't like that as an option. But when you back people into a corner and their lives are threatened, I mean, it's human nature, it's instinct. It's either fight or flight, you know, and fight. You know what I mean? So yeah, this is not to make fun of the loss of life, but just to highlight how the DA's office will use anything they could think of. They have no shame. They're not above lying, or paying or coercing people to lie. And that's why court watching is so critically important, because guess what? Ain't no reporter out here. Where's what's his name? Hessler, Carl reporting on this? Did Carl write a rave review for Judge Furman and the jury for finding Mr. Byrd not guilty?
No.
He wrote a drag out bullcrap article about that job.
Right. All the negative things you could think of.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And I don't know. I didn't read the article, so. But yeah, I can only imagine, you know, from what perspective he wrote that article. Not, thank God, an innocent man is able to walk free.
He wrote down to the fact of he doesn't know where they got that jury pool from. Okay, they must have been asleep when she presented her case.
Oh wow! Please send that to me, because we need to let Carl know that you don't get to write shit like that. We will drag your ass too. He's been on the show. We've talked about him. He hasn't physically been here, but we've talked about him and his reporting, because he is the only court reporter. The only court reporter that's writing news about what goes on in that courthouse. And he's a white man. So,
but I tell you this, what you just said, I'm sorry to cut you off, but what you just said was completely right about the lies that they tell to get a case. Because even me watching the arraignments from 9:30 to 9:31, 2:30, and 7:30, boy, oh boy, them DAs stretch it. They stretch it hard. To the point where it's like hard for you to sit there. Like a lady earlier, it was hard for her to swallow the pill, but she like put her hands over her mouth, but it was bad. And then it was even to the point today, and it wasn't, I don't think, in the best interest of this guy, but he called the judge a bitch today when he didn't get the bail reduced. Yeah. And it was Judge Rothstein.
Yep. Yeah, you don't want to do that. Don't want to do that.
So I think he might have some pending charges coming.
Yeah, additional. Yeah, you know, and this is, you know, again, we do this because we want the transparency. We want the DA's office to do better. We want the police to do better. If the defense attorneys are slacking, we want them to do better. Like, this is no game. This is not, you're not playing, you know, with people's lives. Like, you should not be able to do that. And the only way we can interrupt that is by showing up and coming to court watch and you know, hopping on the Zoom links and things like that, just doing our part to participate. Real quick, we got a quick commercial because we got some stuff that's coming up. I just want to highlight that, and then we'll get y'all what the fuck moment, and we will let y'all have the rest of your Tuesday night. So May is Mother's Day, so we got the Mama's Day bailout coming up. So if you want to donate to the bail fund to support the Mama's Day bailout, we can do that. We have the Teen Summit coming up, which is our summer, and we supposed to have some things popping up. Our summer, spring summer edition of the Teen Summit, where we're going to be partnering with the Carver Center. We're going to be doing CPR certifications, lifeguard certifications for our young folks to get certified in some of those things. We should have cannabis shirts. The Teen Summit. Oh, he didn't give all that. I missed that. Cannabis shirts are still on sale for $4.20. $20. Hit us up if you want to rock a cannabis t-shirt. I'm rocking our Got Bail t-shirt, so we have those available as well. The Protect Your People book is still here. So all these resources, and that's going to be the book title for our community service book club. They'll start reading that, Protect Your People, for our young folks that have to do community service. And today, April 22nd, is Earth Day. So happy Earth Day to folks, and let's love on the world we are given. We only have one. And so, yeah, we need to do better at protecting our resource, Mother Earth. So what the fuck? Who has a moment that they'd like to share? Something.
I mean, I just say, when are we going to just, get it right? Right. I always keep on saying that.
Yep. Mr. Scott?
Hey, all I can say is what the fuck is going on with Norristown? We let the interlopers come in and try and train our kids. Parents, you need to grab your kids, let them know what's going on around them, know who's talking to them, trying to influence them, know about these silly women who think because they feel it's okay, that it's okay, but these are people's kids, and you guys, you got to back your children up. You got to back your women up. You got to show up to let people know that it ain't as sweet as they think it is.
Right. And it's not a what the fuck moment. It's just to amplify what you said, is that we need parents to show up. Parents have to get out of their own ways. Like, they've grown up too. Like, stop fucking around in these streets. Pay attention to your kids. Be parents to your kids. You know what I mean? Because these kids is out here getting hold of guns, and, they're robbing people, they're carjacking people, and they're committing serious crimes that can land them in jail for decades. And we're talking 17, 18, 19, 21-year-old kids that are committing these serious crimes that will land them in jail for decades. And it's like, kids, stop being stupid. Stop playing like you don't have resources, you don't have activities and things that you can get into. Like this street life, you're not built for it. You're not built for the street life. You sure as hell ain't built for the jail life or the prison life. You know what I mean? But that's what they keep, wanting to do and exercise. Like, this is the only option. There's loads of options and opportunities for our young people here in Norristown and throughout Montgomery County. So it's not just here, but you've got to want and see yourself in a different space, in a different light. That prison is not where you want to go. Like, who wakes up and says, all right, yeah, what can I do to go to prison today? You know what I mean? But these kids aren't thinking. They're just getting up and doing whatever somebody tells them to do, or what they feel like doing, or, they're not emotionally regulating themselves or intelligent or can't think for themselves. They're being peer pressured and all these other things. And it's like, what the fuck, kids?
I'd like to give a shout out to young Ralph Mitchell. We were just down at the park on Oak Street, and some adults got into a mix-up, and everybody pulled guns. And Ralphie, hey, bless his heart, got in between these guys and separated them because there was nothing but kids around.
Right.
And if they had to start shooting, it wouldn't have got either one of them, but it would have got one of somebody's kids.
Right,
And the
right.
other thing is you're sending your kids to the park by themselves. And these little young girls dressed like they 21 years old and they 9 and 10 years old. And these old heads, 18 and 19 years old, is whispering in their ears, giving them a ride. You have to be accountable for your actions and the actions of your kids.
Right. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
Ralphie, thank you.
Yeah,
Thank
big ups, Ralphie. That's a good look. We appreciate that.
Yeah.
And so, all right. Is that everything? You got everything off your chest, Taria? We good? All right. Well, we're gonna shout out Crystal Bush. She was our guest, our Freedom by Weed Man. Stay lifted. She's got Puff and Pose that's getting ready to hit on May, whatever the first Sunday in May is. It's I call it weed infused yoga. It's pretty dope. May 4th. May 4th. And we have a special Mother's Day guest for the guest episode in May that's going to be talking about what it's like to be pregnant, a mother, and incarcerated. That is going to be a chilling story about what it's like to be a pregnant mother incarcerated at MCCF right here in Montgomery County, when they act like there aren't any pregnant women there, that, moms aren't there and all of that. So again, back to the Mama's Day bailout. If y'all are so inclined to donate to the bail fund so that we can bring mothers home for Mother's Day or for the month of May, it's not even just Mother's Day, but for the month of May, that we're trying to free mamas from incarceration so that they can be reunited with their kids, back home with their families. Women should not be incarcerated for 90% of the things that's going on. And Taria, maybe we'll talk about that the next Court Watch episode, is like what we're seeing, the trends that we're seeing through the arraignments, that it's mostly women. It's a lot of retail theft charges, a lot of, small possession charges that these women are catching, either because chasing behind some man or chasing behind some drug. And it's really impacting our women. And we really, really, really need to do better at securing our women and keeping them healthy so that they can be the mothers and aunties and sisters that we know and love. So with that being said, we're going to say peace out. I love y'all. I appreciate y'all. Everything that you do for the Court Watch program, it definitely has an impact. Again, I don't want to keep going on and on and on, but Taria Risa even spoke to you about our presence in the courtroom and how she appreciated that and how more of that needs to happen. So it's not just coming from us saying the community, this needs to happen, we need to happen, and this is why. We have people that sit on the bench that appreciate what we do, that recognize the value in what we do, and hate seeing people sitting there by themselves and the system just having their way with them. And so, you want to be a court watcher, you don't need to go through us. You just go there and sit and watch, for your own benefit, so that people can see that folks are really paying attention. And so with that, I say, I love y'all. Peace out.
Thank you for tuning in to this episode of Purely Speculation. If you learned something, share something. Please like, follow, and share this show. The more our communities know, the more they are empowered, and the faster we can create change. Purely Speculation would not be made possible without the generous support of the Community Justice Exchange, the Health Sparks Frank E. Boston Black Justice Fund, Philadelphia Foundation, and Reform Alliance. Thank you. Booyah!
Intuition different, already lived and dreamt it. Visions make my vision clear as I'm jogging through this fog of life. I beat, fog like with the fox head, body and I'm all set. Baby, can you be my Cardi B on and offset? Toast we got it, self we built.